It's 11:11. Make a wish.
Success. So, I do want to on camera talk about one thing.
We keep talking.
Yeah.
I wanted to appease him. All of that was for him.
Oh,
Don't tell.
okay. So
It's
something I want to mention though, like the online communities are really helpful, and I've made a couple of them myself to try to foster.
That's how I have.
Yeah, so I started the Maryland, DC, and Virginia Ehlers-Danlos and related conditions group. That's been going, I think, 14 years now. So that's a local resource for everybody in the DMV area. But then I have two groups, COTS, MCAS, CDS, and related conditions, and then Expert Zebras.
So where are
online.
these?
So those two are on Facebook. And, my company is called The Herds Nerd. So I'm, but,
We love our puns.
yeah, right. But those communities are all places that patients can go to find support for each other, and they're not censored except for inaccurate medical information. A lot of these Facebook groups, I feel like, have all of these silly rules that they're not really helping anybody really stay, safe. It's just kind of to make the admin's lives easier.
Right.
And
we remove some of the authenticity when we start deeply censoring.
yeah, and like
this is a pretty heavily and intensely self-policing community, if we're gonna be off.
I think that most people, I mean, some of these are fairly large groups and they're mostly well behaved. There's some spammers that come in, and of course you want to be careful with your privacy, right? There's a lot of anonymous posting that's welcomed, right? Like you don't have to ever put your name on anything. But it's a great place to even just search and say, okay, I have this symptom. Like how many other people have this symptom?
Am I barking up the wrong tree? Is this a good option for an approach to try?
Yeah.
Like medical advice, but like
yeah, and it's I wouldn't call it medical advice. It's mostly people sharing experiences and oh hey, I've taken this medicine. What side effects has it caused for other people? And then you find that a medicine that's not supposed to have side effects.
Right, like am I crazy that Lyrica made me feel like I couldn't judge distance and I got into a car accident? Like I thought I was
I mean, there's a lot of people that have weird side effects, but when you have a group of patients talking about things, and sometimes I just, for the heck of it, I'll do a survey in the group and see, just for my knowledge, like, how many patients have this? How many patients have that? Like, is this something? Yeah, and is this something we need to evaluate more professionally in a study, or is it just something that a couple of my patients have an ovarian torsion? Is that something that's happened to a lot of people, or is that just a fluke?
Yeah, and I mentioned off camera, I literally yesterday read in researching for our men's panel interview.
Yeah,
I read there's not a lot of EDS published research on men.
no.
There's some case studies.
That's why we're doing a panel.
Great.
Yeah.
There's a few case studies, and one of the case studies I read was a young man with testicular torsion. So now
one of my friends couldn't come to my wedding because their nephew, they had to help and they had emergency surgery for that.
And that's happened in my family.
So, and I actually work with a number of men. If you need people, just let me. And if you guys need anything, like just reach out. I'm like I said. I mean, I have boundaries, but I want to help.
Those of us that do this kind of work, we don't do the same work that you do, but we do similar kind of motivations and or methods, so to speak. We understand.
That felt good, actually.
Yeah, sometimes it does. And that's the other thing. A lot of patients really want to go to chiropractor because they want to get that crack and that release, but they don't understand. I mean, it's contraindicated by the World Health Organization to do chiropractic manipulation, like the cracking part of it. Chiropractors can do other things. It's not that going to a chiropractor itself is bad. It really. I've seen a lot of patients.
I would be too afraid. Knowing the crazy things that are going on in this meat suit. I would be too nervous to. Like I'm still not treating half of my problems because I'm like.
So I will say that. So I've worked with a chiropractor that had no clue, and I worked with a chiropractor that definitely had a clue and knew about hypermobility
And caveat.
and had a bunch of hypermobile patients. It's because we all find the same
Yeah.
people, right? And so their approach was drastically different, very gentle. And
But
I
even using the activator, by the way, I've had
Mhm.
several patients that had the activator cause a CSF leak.
yeah, we don't so things like that. Nothing everything has to be a little gentle with us. You know, it can't be
But manual physical therapy from a trained physical therapist has better results and less risk. And a lot of the physical therapy mindset is exercise, exercise, exercise instead of manual. But you can find there's something called the Baral Institute, and that usually, people go through their website. You can find a practitioner that knows like craniosacral and myofascial, other things
Yeah.
that they teach. It's a really great resource for people to find. Also, pelvicpain.org to find a pelvic floor physical therapist is a great resource. Like I want to make more websites that have a lot of this information than
We
I,
have a website.
yeah, I
We can-
know.
we can-
like,
we can- I would love to
That's a
have.
better
yeah,
repository.
Yeah,
because like patients just they're so I don't want people to need my services. Like I want people to be able to go to a website and
There
like,
should be a
Right.
resource for this, but
Uh,
if there isn't,
but
then
and not in an overwhelming way, because I've gone to some. Like I've gone to some website and it's too much, too big, and then I feel and it's too generic,
yeah.
and I'm like that person in the middle.
and so that's why having someone who is an advocate who knows the resources
Yeah.
or the resources in your area or in that specialty.
That's what I did with the local group is we have the doctor's list, we have, some local stuff. And, I try to have, local doctors come on if we do and I do question and answer sessions for them too. And I do what I can. I just don't know sometimes. I've tried to make TikTok videos of educating. I just made one last week about massages because I feel like so many people come say, why did
That's the one
Why do I need
massage?"
education? So my birthday was recently, and her birthday's coming up, and that was my fear.
We're all within 2 weeks. It goes Tiffany.
Yeah.
2 weeks later.
Yeah,
2 weeks later.
it's like a
When is your birthday?
September.
Don't see my identity. No.
Okay. You didn't say the year. They don't
Yeah,
know
but
the
the
year.
point was,
I
the point was I went to a massage for my birthday, and it was great while it lasted. And then I had to remind myself, I need 2.5 business days to recover.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. So if they work on the fascia instead of the muscles,
Just the muscle, yeah.
first of all, mast cells live in all of the tissues that they might be massaging potentially. So you want to look out for redness and heat and I mean, sometimes honestly during massages, I used to get the feeling my throat was closing because I would have that
You were going into
severe,
that
I would get hives. I would get all sorts.
I've never gone there.
Well, I used to have anaphylaxis several times a week. I had a very severe case. If you knew how bad I was, you would be so
My boyfriend
surprised
can't
how far
even
I
have-
come.
I've seen it. It's terrifying. Yeah. So God bless.
That's great. I'm so glad to see how well the company is.
No, I mean I've had ups and downs. I mean, I still can't be in a room that's cold or else my muscles freak out. But and cold is like anything below 75. Like it's
Right.
ridiculous. No. I mean,
Again,
I know. I'm not saying that as a thing. I just
but like to just to show the difference.
Yeah.
Differences in us who have diagnosed. Well, you have a
Yeah.
different type,
well,
but
but I have small fiber neuropathy and it's getting worse. And
I was negative for all of those tests, like the biopsy stuff.
yeah, my biopsy was positive, and for a while I was really nervous about moving forward with IVIG and some of the treatments. But I am the type of person who pushes through maybe a little too much, and I think it's time that I'm trying 2 more meds this week, and if not, I'm getting
And that,
for the IVIG.
you said the mast cell is deeply under-recognized with our disease state, but that's another one. SFN, I think, is really under-recognized.
Well, But
not
you know,
ideal.
there's studies on EDS patients that say it's like 80 to 90% of us have positive small
almost,
fiber.
yeah, it's almost all of us, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but it affects us in different ways. For me, my muscles just tense up so much when I get cold, and then they cause more dislocations.
Right.
You know, and
then if you do finally get them to relax, then you dislocate more because then you're jello.
not for me.
No, I do. That's what
But
happens to me.
my dislocations are at this. Well, no, you're right. But that's when I usually go to too much manual PT.
Gotcha.
Right now, for me, it's more that I have such severe muscle spasms that like my rib will pull out because
That
my
it's
spine
pulling
is
it out because
spasming,
it's
and then I
such a-
can't breathe because my rib's dislocated. And then half the time, I don't even know if my doctors. I mean, they do and they don't. Like some of my stuff.
The patient advocate doesn't always believe that her doctors believe her. I just wanted to pause.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a lot of great doctors who absolutely believe me. There's just some of them that are like, what? Like I said to my
Because
doctor
it's
the
so
other day,
unbelievable.
well, I gained a lot of weight recently and steroids. Everybody gains weight with steroids. I lose 10 to 15 pounds every time I go on a steroid. I like get all my water weight is just gone because my water weight is inflammation based.
Inflammation. Yeah.
And even when I'm not, yeah. And I get remissions where
mine is cyclical. Once a month I gain 20 pounds and lose 20 pounds in about 6 days.
wow.
Great.
That's hard. Wow. But I've gone into remissions where I just lose the weight and I don't understand what causes them. It's like a full set of symptoms just goes away.
So when I was first going through severe pain and that sort of thing, I was begging, going to the doctor saying, please help me, like my foot's killing me. This doesn't feel right. I keep having injuries. I'm so fatigued, and all I ever got was lose weight. And then I got more dejected, and I stopped doing healthy things like stuff so that I gained more weight because it got in my head. And eventually I ended up thinking, okay, well, this is all that's wrong with me. And then guess what happened? I got down to a healthy weight surgically, I might add, and I got worse. And then about 3 years later, I was the model patient.
It was a second.
You're too thin.
A lot of people don't realize when they lose weight, they're losing connective tissue and they're losing stability.
Stability, yeah.
Right. And a lot of people are
was
going on Ozempic and all of those other drugs and don't realize that they make gastroparesis worse, even permanently, not just temporarily. So we need to educate patients about stuff like that so they know the risks of what they're doing.
Metabolism, yeah.
Yeah. But what's interesting, a lot of patients are going on those drugs and saying their chronic pain is gone.
Or EDS patients are saying it's
it's the magic that their pain
temporarily
is gone while they're on those drugs. And we need to figure out why.
When we just had this conversation, I was like, did you know that?
It's
there's something in obviously the biochemical changes and we just don't understand yet. But it was, of course, temporarily, I did feel a little bit better, but then I cascaded. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to fix everything. And then I was a great patient, very successful, maintaining my weight loss, but I never got to what I thought I should be, the weight, the number wise. And so I went in because I thought I was a failing patient, and the doctor was like, I can see your ribs. You actually need to put on a little weight. What? And they're looking at me, and she's like, I'm going to refer you to a vascular specialist. And the vascular specialist diagnosed me with lipedema after having weight loss surgery. And I've clearly had it all along. I've had this symptoms since I was a young teenager, and it had progressed. And now I realize that it's a big part of my pain experience, and it's very much hormone related. And there's complex things with our hormones, with our metabolism that we just don't understand. And not every patient deals with that, but there's a huge comorbidity.
There's a new study. Well, there's been a bunch of studies, and basically, we've learned that the thyroid hormones and cortisol and some of that stuff is like a roller coaster. It doesn't stay stable in Ehlers-Danlos. And when you put a patient on a low dose of a thyroid med with low dose of hydrocortisone, a lot of these patients are getting better. So that is a protocol that a lot of endocrinologists are now using. And, I mean, there's a lot of things like that, I can talk to patients about and I can talk to their doctors about and see if they're comfortable with trying. There's so many options. There's so much hope for these patients to try all sorts of different
But
things.
there's just not a lot of access to that knowledge or care. Like, for instance, that disease, say lipedema, like I'm getting care from someone who's getting information from like the EDS specialists out in Arizona. Like they don't have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah.
And so it's
And
like
are you in Texas?
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
So it's, it's frustrating. At least I finally found someone and then so it's great. But so it's like you're constantly chasing the resource, right? So what you went back to, that's ultimately, I think, the biggest thing we need is the validation, the support, and the resources. So those
And I think we
systemic
can work
fixes.
together as as a patient community.
It's up to us. It's got to be grassroots. It's no one else is doing.
Yeah. And, but a lot of people get strayed away too from, people just attack so many creators and so many, like
there was an argument within our little community within the last week over, that sort of stuff. And it's really frustrating.
Who has a seat at the table.
Right. And I constantly have to remind people we're on the same team. Like we may not agree with everything, but let's show some, kindness and understanding. And we need to kind of be a little more trauma informed. We talked about that, and I said, the elephant in the room with the zebras is the trauma.
And that's
unfortunately sometimes each other.
Like they want to kick somebody out after one thing that wasn't even that bad. And I'm like, I don't want to remove somebody from their community, especially a local community where you can find their doctor.
Well, that is with
I think I've only removed 4 people in the entire time I've had that group. And they did egregious things. But also I don't want somebody to be uncomfortable either. So I'll talk to them about their behavior and, I mean, again, I don't want to be like a kindergarten teacher. But like, I think part of what I do with education with autism is, say what the difference between neurotypicals and neurodivergence in terms of autism and whatever, we don't speak between the lines. Neurotypical people are always trying to read between the lines in what we're trying to say, but we are very direct. So when a neurodivergent and neurotypical person are talking with each other, and lines get crossed a lot, and one doesn't realize that somebody's literally saying only what they're saying, and
to compound it, a lot of times those conversations are not happening in person. So we are the nonverbal communication is missed, and so it's.
But also, autistic people don't have the same nonverbal communication.
Not at all.
So I'm on a date and I'm like this because I'm freezing, and they
Or I'm like this to hold my body up.
Yeah, and then they think we're in a bad mood or whatever. Or we talked about earlier, we couldn't breathe, so we're like huffing, and our partners are like,
why
are you angry?
I was on a second date, and the guy was like, "God, are you okay? Are you uncomfortable?" I was like, "Yeah, what's wrong?" He's like, "Because I was shaking." And I was like, "Oh," and then I explained the dysautonomia. I mean, I'm like, but a lot
of people will not ask you, and they will make an assumption.
They make an assumption that you respond with that, or they just respond in an unkind way,
which then would make me respond,
and then I'm gonna be,
"What's wrong with you? Well, you were lenient. No, I wasn't. Well, you're feeling it," and then it's like, okay.
Yeah. And
then I always end up apologizing to that person for what they did to me.
Right.
I don't do that anymore.
Well, and that's something, again, I try not to take the role of a therapist, but I can with the patients that are autistic, help them with communication with doctors. And a lot of these skills are really important to learn. Like, hey, when you say this, I know you're only saying this, but it can come across to a neurotypical person that you actually mean this.
So many things that are said that mean different things that I didn't know meant different things.
Yeah.
I'll give you a good example. I have 2 male friends that are autistic that would ask people out to dinner.
Mhm.
They just wanted to go to dinner. They did not want to go on a date, but everybody they asked thought that they were asking them out on a date. And, things like that. It's the perfect example. No, they're just asking you to go out to dinner. They like to eat food. They think you're a cool person and want to be their friend. They did not know the context. And there's things like that in the medical community and in friendships and everything else. There are words mean things aside from what they actually mean in the direct and indirect.
Speaking of
Yeah.
autism thing, I struggle with eye contact.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I I'm looking with an
so someone that I had a long-term serious relationship with was very offended that I couldn't make eye contact and that I would like if someone started walking by, my eyes would go to whatever.
Also ADHD squirrel.
I was always
Did it make a noise? Did I see it? Did I hear it?
Yeah.
But I was also there's also an element of hypervigilance that comes with trauma.
Absolutely.
So there's all these reasons. But so then a few years later I got diagnosed with autism. Of course, I was older, I was 39. And I in the literal evaluation, like the neuropsych evaluation, I was like, so how am I supposed to give eye contact? I was asking, how do I mask it? How do I just fit in? Tell me. I was like, I can't look in your eye. I can't do it as an example. I'm like, I can't look in your eyeballs all the time. I can't. And they were like, that's not what eye contact is. I was like, wait, what? What? They were like, no, eye contact isn't you maintain 2 eyeballs looking at 2 eyeballs all the time.
Really? Because that's what it sounds like.
So what did you say it was?
They said it's the eye's gaze throughout the other person's face, occasionally making contact with, and it's usually one eye is making contact with one eye because it's impossible to make 2 eyes
Because of
and I
the way
think
eyes.
the whole time I was overthinking it so intensely because I thought my 2 eyes had to be magnetized to your 2 eyes, and then I can't even do that. But also it's emotionally very uncomfortable. But neurotypical people don't even do that. They float naturally and they don't
Which is why when you make the weird eye contact, because you're told to make eye contact,
So
but you don't want to, then you're weird.
So my
Because
mask
we're like, hey, I'm a creeper.
my mask was overcorrecting. I was trying really hard to be acceptable. So then I was like,
And look at your kisses. She's
so then I was like, hi, I'm making eye contact. Hello, I'm making eye contact. I'm maintaining eye contact. Can you see me making eye contact?
Did you see I looked away. I was like, stop. Weird.
So I was making neurotypical people comfortable no matter what I did. Anyhow, that's just an example of also Netflix and chill apparently means something besides
Oh, the number of times I was called a tease in high school, I was like, whoa, we're just hanging out. Why are you trying to read?
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of it. Don't even get me started with the whole dating thing because we could do a whole podcast on that. I think
Side series.
I'm happy to.
hashtag neurodivergent dating. Go look it up. You won't be.
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, brain doesn't remember what I was.
Oh,
Gonna say.
Come on, brain.
Dating. Netflix and chill. Netflix and chill. It was Netflix and chill.
I just saw something about being neurodivergent and flirting and just showing interest in another person.
Right. Oh, doing this or thinking what you're trying
Or
to.
how many men thought I wasn't interested in them, or that I had rejected them,
Yeah.
and then me being rejected, thinking
Well,
I was rejected.
And the other thing about autism is they don't teach you about rejection sensitive dysphoria and pathological demand avoidance.
No.
Often it's in the UK, there's a huge, there's a whole diagnostic criteria based
So-
on that.
Are you PDA profile?
Yep.
I am.
I figured.
Was it obvious?
No, I didn't mean to. Yeah, all of us.
I have a theory that most EDSers are PDA.
Oh, I don't know. I think the way it presents for me is I'm on a dating site and somebody asks me, what's your favorite color or what's your favorite movie or what's your favorite whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I don't answer that. Don't make me like what's my favorite color to wear or look at or paint?
So that right, that's
like
classic autism right there, because you're like, okay,
Let me
you categorize.
quantify this.
Yeah. For me, I don't like anybody, my big demand of, I don't want somebody being like, oh, well, it's 3:00 or you should do this or I like to know why I need to do something. So I don't typically avoid a task.
Don't tell me what to do arbitrarily.
Yes, like, am I doing it wrong or is it getting like those I don't want somebody coming in if I'm already doing something or if you told me to do something and I'm not doing it just yet. So he does this a lot with our youngest. Like, oh, do the whatever chore. And it hasn't been done in say 30 minutes. He would say it again, and that would really anger.
Yeah, that'll get me.
So what I started doing with them, I would be, hey, you're supposed to unload the dishes. It would really be helpful to me if you could complete it by X time so I can complete X task.
So you understand.
As long as if you can get it, is this reasonable to you? Can you get this done in that time? No, if not, okay, well then can you do this task for me instead? It's easier and I can handle it. Like once we learned, but it took a long time to like really figure out those mechanics.
Remember how I told you that ever since Evie was like a baby, she was the most chill baby as long as we told her exactly what to expect.
Well, that's what with me as a kid, I didn't understand. Like, okay, so if you tell me don't use the stairs. Okay. But is there something wrong with upstairs or is it something wrong with the stairs? I don't, that's not a great example.
Yeah. Is there a time of day I shouldn't use the stairs?
But I need to know because I need to know that in a different circumstance. I'm not going to do the thing you want me to do. I need to know the reason because I need to.
Have you solved the problem?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then when people would say, well, you don't need to know that information, you're doing this over here. I'd be like, I'd like to know everything because I might make a better solution later because of the way I'm
well, and then
and this relates back to patients. So I have a patient, it's actually a very good friend of mine that I just help out occasionally. You know what the doctor said to her? Her doctor said, take this drug. And she says, okay, but why am I on this drug? You don't need to know. Okay. Well, she found her blood value. The doctor eventually said, well, one of your blood values was off, so you need this drug. Wouldn't tell her which blood values, wouldn't tell her why, wouldn't give her a diagnosis. I mean,
it seems like they do everything wrong.
Well, but I don't think they knew what the diagnosis was. I think it was just her ANA was up when we looked at her blood work. It was just her ANA, but what was the doctor thinking? And sure, the drug helped her, but she wants to know why. She wants to know what she's diagnosed with. And also, she's sleeping half the day. She's in office. She would put an air mattress in her office to sleep to try to work.
So this drug is affecting her life.
No.
This was before.
Whatever disease it is, the drug helped a little bit, but she's got something that is so severe that she
can't make it.
Yeah, she needs other treatment. And, if she doesn't know what she has,
how are you going to approach anything?
Yeah. So, I think informed consent is extremely important. And that doctor's just a bad doctor. Some doctors are bad doctors, and she would not let me in the appointment at all. She said, she got very offended at even the thought of having an advocate in.
I think that goes back to the other part of demand avoidance that I think we forget about is internal demand avoidance. Mm-hmm. Like I think that's kind of where some of those type of behaviors come from. Like we know we should, but then we have this internal narrative. Well, you should do that. Well, I'm not going to do that, even if it's taking care of myself.
Yeah, sometimes it's really hard to get tasks started when your whole body just is in pain and you feel like. So part of it is it demand avoidance or is it like years thought? Yeah. And your body is demanding that you go pee.
Right.
But God, I don't want to get up, my legs hurt, you know?
And I've done the proprioception thing, like I haven't even perceived it. But then also like I will go without eating like on days that my kid's not home because I want a break. I don't want to have to go prepare food.
And it's easier to do something for somebody else than it is to do for
Exactly.
yourself. And I want to teach people about body doubling and all of the
Mhm.
great things that we can do to support each other. and
Ways to accommodate that we
ourselves.
may not have thought of. We can crowdsource. Like, okay, so we start keeping protein drinks. So like,
Yeah.
if it really is that bad, then just grab a protein drink. It's okay.
Oh yeah, I live off those little boost things.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, sometimes I live off Sour Patch Kids because I can't get out of bed and I have
Mhm.
boost and
I
I
have
just need something different.
My ex used to make fun of me for keeping snacks in my nightstand drawer. I was like, well, I get so nauseated that if you want me to get out of bed, I'm gonna have to have some crackers.
Yeah.
But also like
What is that to make fun of? I have a whole nightstand full of snacks.
he was paranoid of bugs. So
Well, I
it
mean,
doesn't
you
matter. But
first of all, you can. I mean, I have Cheetos next to my nightstand. Yeah, you roll them up, whatever. I mean,
I cannot do Cheetos so we do Cheetos with chopsticks.
those are cute.
And that's a neurodivergent life hack if you have sensory.
Oh yeah. I mean, Ella, one of the first days I got her, she found one of the Cheetos bags in the trash. She got it out and she put it on her head. She was trying to eat through it, and it was the cutest.
We should
little
just call you
video.
Cheetos.
No, her name at the shelter was Ramen Noodles. So her official name is Penelope Elwood, Ramen Noodles Carrington.
That's beautiful.
It's
That's
so
suits
silly.
you.
It's so silly. Well, because I saw her and I was like, she looks like a Penelope,
I see that.
but had to figure out what an Ella
Mm-hmm.
had to.
Ella.
Ella. Her Instagram is Ella Bobella, and nobody knows the Banana Kind of Fofella song. And
I
and
don't know that.
right?
So
It was like
speaking
what we did
of
when we were kids.
Instagrams.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I'm not big on social media.
So
Really,
so for your company, if a listener wanted to hire you, where do they find you?
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I need to make a website.
Mhm.
I have a website draft, and
That's okay.
nothing
It
is
doesn't-
ever good enough to publish for me, and that's the problem, right? I have such like imposter syndrome that I'm not doing a good enough
You can outsource
job.
that. You can outsource it. Send me what you want done. We'll work together on that. You can help me with my.
I figured out how to build a website like in a day, and I was like, "Here, this is
Hey,
good enough."
I'm happy to trade
And then
services of
producer
anything. Like, I
Tiffany
tell people like, hey,
updates.
if you have a skill, I'll do advocacy for you. You do this for me. I mean, right now, all of my handles are the Herds Nerd.
The Hertz Nerd. So on
Um,
socials, if we wanted to.
Yeah. Now, I also with the Herds Nerd is also my like jewelry business, which I do.
Mhm.
Like, long story short, I have something called advocacy shells where I make little shells and
Lots of
people, yeah, well, people can pay for these shells and give other people free medical
Right. So it's like
stuff.
the
right?
funding.
So with all of my extra fiber and all of this stuff, I was going to actually start knitting pick line covers, like
Oh,
cute,
great.
and people can buy skeins of yarn. I haven't talked to you about that crochet lady.
These two.
Because sometimes
do that.
people want to support other people. Like I've had more wealthy clients say, "Hey, what you do is really great. I want to give you an extra $100 to help somebody who can't."
Right.
You know, but like the seashells, or honestly, half the time I'm on the phone with clients, I have to fiddle with something. Why not just
Do
paint
something
the
with your
thing?
hands, yeah.
You know.
You said
and
your
then-
best selling one through the bird.
Oh, so I have those are the earrings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do clay earrings, and I just I have that as an
So imagine
outlet.
someone in a healthcare profession that has a little creative outlet. I think
Yeah.
it's almost predictable. We are a form.
And like it's funny, we have ADHD, people go from hobby to hobby to hobby to hobby, but I feel like there are certain hobbies where they're my special interest, so I keep going
Same.
with it, and I finally found ones that I can physically do. Like
That you can physically maintain.
that's the problem with knitting. I love knitting, but my hands, I do 2 rows, and my hands hurt so much I can't do
So
it.
I went to art school.
Yeah.
And I did printmaking, and
Yeah.
which is heavy machine, and I did very realistic portraits and drawings, and there's a lot of grief with that. I can't do that. So I struggled. I've hopped from hobby to hobby. This is my creative outlet. I tell jokes and I make a podcast now. And so it's
I didn't know I was creative
until
I was kind of.
yeah.
Apparently, I'm really good at like designing my home.
You are like a
Problem solver. Like if in almost any place I've gone
You're like
into,
a-
I would go in and
you're
make
a
it better.
monster.
So on your phone stuff, I like.
I will like go into any. Actually, I did that. When I was president of the PTA at my daughter's school, I went in. I'm like, you don't have anything stored electronic. What are you doing? I got them all set up. Drive, got them all this, got that. Oh, she's out of here. Bye. And then they still use all of that crap I said.
Yeah, I think I'm in a lot of committees, and what I find is the committee from one year and the next year, they don't talk to each other. So I set up like binders and Google Drives and all that stuff. And it's crazy to me that people are in some of these leadership positions for nonprofits and some of the things I've worked with, and they don't have any organization for the next, and there's like they're starting from scratch, and they have their, their work is so much harder when you don't have a template.
Well, in volunteer organizations, a lot of times it's because they don't want to put the energy into it because it's a volunteer organization or if it's required.
Oh God.
it's to make things.
And that, I mean, that's in my experience with fraud.
It's
Is
funny.
it forensics?
It's funny you say that because I was, we thought somebody might be doing that in an organization that I was chair of, and we were sending money overseas to a Armenian genocide. It's a long story.
Which is a legitimate.
Oh yeah.
Support.
But I ended up, taking over the bank account because like there was, the treasurer just like kind of disappeared, but she was also accused of taking some money and whatever. And, I just,
I mean, there's
settled
some basic
this
protocols for those things
Yeah.
too, like if it's divide out duties, never have just one person in charge of one thing.
Absolutely.
You got to have internal controls or things like that are volunteer run or good faith or someone's been, they've been doing that for a long time. Well, the guy that was stealing money, he was
There has to be
stealing money for
someone
a long
checking.
And that's, something I really love about autistic people is 99% of the time you can trust them because we have this like justice and like, I don't know, like there's something ingrained in autistic people to be honest and
What did
just.
we talk about today?